We lived in a one-cabin house. We had no electricity or water or anything, so we lived off the land, and we hauled water from the river. We used cottonwood. We had wood stoves in the home, and a lot of times we had to hunt for our food. And we knew that life wasn't easy, but we lived a hard life, so we're prepared for it.
Hello, I'm Emmy DeGrappa. Each week, we bring you stories asking our guests the question, why? We learn about their passion, why they do what they do, why should we care, and what can we learn? What better place to explore the human landscape than from the state known for its incredible landscapes, Wyoming? And what better organization than Wyoming Humanities? Serving our state for over 45 years, we share stories, ideas, and wisdom about the human experience. This is What's Your Why? Today, we are talking to Marlin Spoonhunter. He is a tribal leader for the Northern Arapahoe tribes. Welcome, Marlin.
Good morning.
Is that a good way to describe you and what you do for the Wind River Reservation? Is that you're a tribal leader?
Yeah, but I'd like to take part a lot in my community.
And what makes someone a tribal leader?
Well, there's different ways. Educationally, if you go off to school and return, and you get one of the director's jobs for some of the programs on a reservation, then you're kind of considered a leader. But then there's also our tribal council, where you can be elected as a leader, from your community. And in our tribe, we have 6 who we call councilmen. They get elected every 2 years.
Okay, and those are your council members.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up on the Wind River Indian Reservation in a little area called 17 Mile. It's a little community between the communities of Arapahoe and Ethity.
And when you grew up, what was your experience? What is it like to grow up on the reservation? How would you describe that?
Well, where I grew up was really remote. I had a big family. I came from a big family. There was 8 of us in our family. My mom died when I was 6 years old. And my uncle raised me, him and my older sister, and she was only like in 4th or 5th grade. We lived in a one-cabin house. We had no electricity or water or anything, so we lived off the land, and we hauled water from the river. We used cottonwood. We had wood stoves in the home, and a lot of times we had to hunt for our food. And so it was real, it was tough growing up like that, but also promoted a lot of values, for myself and some of my brothers and sisters as we grew up, and we knew that life wasn't easy, but we lived a hard life, so we're prepared for it.
What made you want to go to school and further your education?
Well, my uncle that raised me, he only went to 8th grade, and back in those days our men would only go to 8th grade, then they would look for jobs, and that was like in the 1940s, 50s, and even the 60s. And my uncle would always tell me, Marlin, you need to graduate from high school. And then he told me that when I was like in 4th grade. Later on, that 4th grade, that summer, we were sitting around at our home, and he says, Marlin, he said, you know what, I think you're going to have to graduate from college. He said, because things are going to change by the time you're 18 years old and you graduate, so you need to get a college degree. He said, you have to get this degree they call a bachelor's. He went like that. Now, when I was in 5th grade, he told me again, he says, well, Marlon, he says, I don't think when you get to be that age in college, he said, I think you need to get a master's degree. He said, because you can get a master's degree like your cousin that lives down the road here, Marlin Spoonhunter. He said, she's the first Arapahoe woman to ever get a master's degree. He said, so I think that's what you have to do. I was told about education ever since I was, really young, and that's why, I was able to, that was a goal that I fulfilled, throughout my lifetime.
And what are your degrees in?
I have Associate of Arts degree from Haskell Indians Nations University, which used to be just called Haskell Indian Junior College, in liberal arts. Then I got my bachelor's degree at the University of Montana in elementary education. Then I got my master's degrees in adult education from Montana State University. Then I got administrative endorsement from Montana State University.
And what is the biggest difference between understanding what it is to get your education and helping these young students that are coming up understand what that means for them?
I think, to me, we need to share our experiences that we had, with each particular college, or because I went to 4 different colleges and had different experiences at each one. And I think, if we share our experiences with our younger people and get them prepared for it, then, I know they'll be successful.
Well, I'm wondering, as I'm talking to you, what are the biggest challenges for the Native Americans right now in education?
Well, the biggest funding issue, not only for Native Americans, but for, a lot of students, is funding. They need to get types of funding to make sure they're able to continue on with their education, and they pay tuition fees and all that, but there's other costs that, are unforeseen and we're not told about, especially when we're in high school, when we're just, applying for college. And I think funding's a major issue, we as Native people face. A lot of times, some of us are fortunate to get into degree programs that are, their funding comes from professional development grants and that's such from the Department of Education and the Office of Indian Education in D.C. But I think that, to me, that's the big issue now that we face. And our students need to seek different types of funding, for themselves to be able to stay in school.
Not just the funding, but, culturally, do you think there's obstacles that discourage your young people from continuing their education, or is it just hardship?
It depends on the school you're at. The Montana schools university system is pretty good because there's 7 reservations up there. They have a lot of contact with, tribal people. Whereas here in Wyoming, we only have 1 reservation, 1 university, and so it's kind of a little harder for us to, be able to communicate, especially, like I said, we go from a 90%, high school population to like a 1% down at the University of Wyoming, and some of the issues that we face are there's race discrimination, stereotyping, that occurs, and I think that we just got to deal with it in the best way that we can. We can't turn to anger and do things that we would never to create like bad feelings between people. I think that we're in a day and age where people should be educated enough to know that there's going to always be cultural differences and that they need to accept them. Like a lot of diversity.
What do you think about right now with the young people entering into school, and how do they deal with discrimination in terms of where they come from and living on the reservation their whole life and not really having that outside view of the rest of the world? Does that contribute to their understanding or misunderstanding?
I think that, like right now, I know the University of Wyoming is, they're addressing the issues that we talk about. And, to me, it depends on the leadership, of the university. And Dr. Nichols is, a real advocate of, diversity, especially if you live in Wyoming. And our students, a lot of them have already experienced, issues of discrimination and stereotype just, within our reservation, on our reservation from border towns. And that we have people that can, help and guide them. I'd be able to talk to some of them, about, my experiences of having to deal with such, issues. And so I think that they're going to face it. And it depends on, what support system they have within wherever they may be going to school at, if it's going to be available for their support. And we want them to stay in school instead of, when they confronted with a issue like that they return home, because it's not going to get them anywhere if they don't have no education. And I think they need to stay in school and get support from the counselors there and other Native students that attend.
What are some of the typical stereotypes that you're faced with as a Native American that people think of you and put you in a certain box of you're this or you're that?
Well, one is, they say that, we get handouts. We don't have to pay taxes, which we do. They say that we get everything free, which is, not even realistic. We pay for everything just like anybody else. People need to be educated, about what we do, with our life on the reservation. And our life is just like any other life. That people, we all get up in the morning and we're going to all face the same issues throughout the day, and how we deal with it is, what's going to determine our success. And so those stereotypes, one is, that I always had to deal with was, they always say all Indians know how to sing and dance. And yet, we know that there's, some of our tribal members that can't sing. We know there's some tribal members that can dance. But, and then we probably have the best singers and dancers, in the world. Some of the best singers, best dancers that travel, what we call the powwow circuit, and do quite well. Another stereotype is that I always hear is all Indians drink and they're all drunks. I heard this at a board meeting in one of our local towns, and I thought, well, that lady was talking about. She was saying that these Indians here just embarrass our community when tourists come through, and because they're always walking around drunk, and she said they're always drunk. And then so I told her, I said, ma'am, I said, you know what, right now, if you and I walk downtown and went into every bar here, I said, you probably wouldn't find any Indians in there. And I said, there'd be non-Indians in there drinking, and they drink too, And so those are, just stereotypes, but we overcome them by, being positive, being proud of our culture, and being able to, educate people when they ask us, questions like that.
How do you overcome when they call it a white man's education? And so how do you hang on to your culture and your customs, even though you go to college and go away from the reservation? What do you do about that?
Right now, the term that, is kind of going around through Indian country is, this Western education hasn't really, done us wonders. It's allowed us to get degrees and stuff, but, the presentation and the information that we get, it comes from the Western view. And Native people that are educated now, especially with tribal colleges and universities, they're creating, our own indigenous way of knowing, and being able to teach our own knowledge to college students that do attend, tribal colleges, and some are even, helping out mainstream universities about, presenting, our information. And a lot of it changes, though, because, a lot of the history books that were written, weren't from, our perspective, but from different authors. And so today, it's different because, we have Indian authors that can write, about our way of life and how things are totally different from what was written in the previous decades before, we started getting our own authors, lawyers, and, those types of people that are able to show the rest of the world that, we are different, we are unique, and, we are way more educated than we ever were.
And I'm just wondering, when you're out there in the world, do you share as much as you can about your culture to non-natives, that you can cross a bridge or build a bridge between people? How do you do that?
To me, if they ask, and they ask like, in a respectful way, I'm always willing to share, some of the information that they're seeking, because to me, it's teaching them, about our way, but it's teaching them, in a good way, and if they're going to be respectful, with their questions to me, I need to be respectful back and share the information that they might want to know. And, there's lines that are drawn, especially, for us as Native people, when we reach that line, we need to stop, because especially when it comes to our religion and ceremony.
Okay, so there's certain things that you keep sacred that are just part of your own personal culture that you don't share, that no one can really understand.
Yeah, that's why I say, you need to draw the line and know, how far you can go with sharing, some of our private information, or, for us as Native peoples that have helped us survive.
What is the difference between a tribal college and a mainstream university?
Most of them offer 2-year degrees. There's a few that might offer, 4-year degree, and there's a couple that offer a master's.
And are tribal colleges just on the reservation?
Majority of them are just on the reservation, and they were created so that we could address our own needs of higher education, on our, within our own communities. And we focus a lot on our, our tribal languages and our history and culture and our way of life.
When you go to a tribal college and get a degree, is it a degree in sociology, psychology? What is the difference?
Yeah, it's just like, whatever degree program a student prefers to take, that's a degree they'll get, like, psychology, or some just go into Native American studies. There's some students that go into business, they're just like any other 2-year college that, offer, probably about 10, 15, 20 different types of degrees.
What is your specialty, or maybe not specialty, but what is your experience on the Wind River Reservation that you are cultivating for your people? Is it the language? What do you think
Well, right now, the tribal college, a lot of people, come over, and mainly it's for seeking information about our language. And, our statistics are really, not that great. Just for example, in 2007, we had about a little over 9,500 and some enrolled members, and out of that 9,500, there was only 242 fluent speakers, and they were all 55 and over. Then last year, in 2017, they had a meeting in Denver, and those that were there, they were trying to identify all the fluent speakers that were left, and this was 11 years later, and they could only identify less than 50, and fluent speakers. And so a lot of the community members, they come to the college, wanting to learn, or they want to know if we have any information on the language that we can share with them. And, we give them, some of our lessons, we give them dictionaries. And fortunately, right now we have a site that where we're able to go to through the University of Colorado. And there's a linguist down there that's worked with our tribe for over 30 years. His name is Dr. Andrew Kyle. And he's done a lot of research along with one of our former Arapahoe Culture Commission officers, who was Alonzo Moss, who passed on, but he worked and shared a lot of information with Dr. Cal. So they have a whole website, and it's really neat. And to me, I think that a lot of people, if they learn how to use it, they can even teach themselves Arapahoe.
Well, I've heard that when you learn somebody's language, you learn their heart, because that's where it comes from.
Yeah, to me, I think that language is there, and anybody that wants to learn it, it does come from the heart. And if you really want to learn the language, you can. The big question that we always, or excuse, I should say, that we get is people say, I don't have time. And if you're going to learn the language, you need to find time. And then because it's there, our language identifies us who we are as Hainana-Ina, as Arapahoe people. And it also helps in our Hainana-Ina-Ina-Tit, which is our Arapahoe way of life.
So you are fluent in Arapahoe?
No, I'm not. I'm semi. I am a semi-fluent speaker. I worked in Montana for over 26 years, and I moved back home, and I started taking the language and learning it. And so I've only been, re-exposed to it over the last 11 years. And so I'm still learning just along with, all those that want to learn. but it's a powerful language. It's a living language. And, I'm really proud to be, Arapahoe.
Oh, that's beautiful. Tell me something in Arapahoe. I want to hear your language.
When I meet people, and when I speak to groups, other than our tribal members, is, I do an introduction. And I say, Niyake, nanana pa'a ni ehi nita. That's ka nasi not ne ni enata eti. Ni jasti na ne hawa na so nenati no e nana eti. Had ni si tano had ni niya na hina ti. Had ni debiti na tayana ne se nete ena. No henan eti batana.
And what did you just say?
I said, good morning. I said, my name is Whistling Thunder Eagle. Years ago, my uncle, whose Arapahoe name, they called him Sue, not Ne, used to speak Arapahoe to me and my siblings, and we used to listen, but we would never speak it. So now I'm learning the language, and when I catch on to it, I'm going to help my children, my grandchildren, my tribe, my people learn the language, because this language will help us in our Arapahoe way of life, and our language is sacred.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Your Why, a production of Think Why, Wyoming Humanities. This has been executive producer Emmy DeGrappa. Please subscribe and never miss a show. For more information, go to thinkwhy.org.